Well guys, yes, welcome to France, a little town called Montreuil-sur-Mer. Now as far as I'm aware, nowhere near the sea, go figure. This week's vlog, we're just going to be slowly bimbling down through France, stopping off at, I guess, various little villages and various little stopping off points. We might meander over to the Atlantic coast as well, who knows. But it's really just a very typical week for me in the van, as a photographer, as a traveller, and obviously trying to keep Nicola amused as well as we go. So now I think the weather over the next week isn't going to be the best. In fact, this is probably going to be some of the best conditions we can have looking at the forecast. But I also thought that would be a good way to sort of show a very typical week. You know, us van lifers, God I hate that word, like to show all the good bits running around in bikinis and sun-kissed beaches, taking epic shots of wonderful sunsets, when actually we are battling conditions such as this, and also with a need to kind of keep pushing south. It's a little bit chilly this far north in France. We're only about an hour away from Calais, so we're looking to kind of get down sort of into southern France and of course over the border into Spain within the next week, where it's not necessarily going to be balmy conditions, but it'll certainly be a little bit warmer than it is here. Well, good morning. Perhaps not my wisest idea, thinking about making a photography vlog as we drove through France, heading towards Spain. Not least because of the weather. Now, after we left Montreuil-sur-Mer, which I guess, looking at the map, is a little bit close to the sea, so I'll give them that. We drove on a couple of hours to a little park up that we had stayed at back in April. And when I was there in April, I made an image of just a little wooden door with some lovely ferns growing around it, but I only made it with the iPhone. Might have even been with the X100T, but I think it was just with the iPhone. Actually, no, I made two, one with the iPhone, one with the X100T. And I always said I'd like to go back and shoot that with the GFX. And so that was my plan. Unfortunately, well, twofold. One, it was again a very wet and miserable sort of evening. Then the following morning, when it was dry, I took a wander up, took a look at the little scene, and it was devoid of those lovely sort of purplish ferns and stuff, so it actually wasn't worth shooting. So that was a bit of a scrubbed day, or a scrubbed morning. And unfortunately, that theme continued, especially from the weather perspective. It's been a very wet couple of days as we drove down through France. Now, yesterday was Sunday, and we had a choice to make. Put in a big day of driving, which would get us past Bordeaux, or split it up over 2 days, but it would have meant traversing the nightmare that is Bordeaux traffic on a Monday. So basically what we did yesterday, despite the weather, we just drove through 6 hours to where we are right now. Now, from my vantage point, I can see the French Pyrenees. And in fact, this morning earlier on, there was some absolutely stunning light illuminating those mountains. But we're actually heading in the opposite direction. We're about 2 hours from the Spanish border, and that's what we're going to make a break for later on this morning. Just finishing up a little bit of work. But yeah, it hasn't exactly been conducive conditions for making many images over the last couple of days. So apologies for that. But hopefully, maybe later on today, just before we cross the border And then after we cross the border, maybe we'll be able to get the old pixel box out and make a couple of frames. Well, g'day guys, and I'm going to finish this vlog up from inside the confines of the van. As I think I might have mentioned, whose idea was it to try to record a vlog, as with photography vlog especially, as I was making my way south through France. The weather was a little bit challenging to say the least. But hey, you got to roll with the bad times and the good, I guess. Now, after leaving that park up by the little church in France, then it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours across into Spain, where we ended up spending 2 or 3 days in San Sebastian. Now, San Sebastian for us is a little special place. We love it here. I think this was our fifth visit. Now, I was hoping to do a little bit of photography, but again, the weather was quite mixed. So it was just a case of heading out with the iPhone, heading out with the X100T, and seeing what I could capture. Now, I'm not sure whether I mentioned this earlier in the vlog or whether you've been catching up on any of my witterings on Substack, but I've actually been playing about a little bit with some presets, creating some presets on the iPhone. And I was actually using AI to help me a little bit. Now, pitchforks, you can put your pitchforks down. That's all I'm going to mention about AI. But really just seeing whether I could emulate something that maybe Michael Kenna used to do. Now, we're never going to get exactly like what Michael Kenna did with his Holgas, because he was an absolute expert. But trying to mimic a little bit what the Holga can achieve, the little plastic toy camera. Now, I actually have got a Holga, but unfortunately in my infinite unwisdomness decided to pack it in the storage unit, so I no longer have easy access to the Holga. So I asked AI what would be the recipes in, say, Lightroom or in a couple of other applications to see whether I could get something close to what a Holga would give me. And I have to admit, the actual results haven't been too bad, and I'll throw a couple of those images up now. So yeah, into San Sebastian, and I probably shouldn't have listened too much to the weather forecasters, because anyone who lives by a coastline knows that it only takes a little shift in the actual atmosphere for the weather to completely change. So the weather forecasters told us that it was going to be a pretty overcast and nondescript evening. As it turns out, the light was absolutely spectacular. Now again, I'd only got the X100T and the iPhone with me, but I see what I could make work with both of those. As I say, mostly just chasing light, mostly just chasing shadows. And again, I'll put a couple of those images up now from San Sebastian. Now, out of that small selection of images, there's one in particular that stands out, and it's the one of the lady doing the chores, the juxtaposition of her against the church and the sort of touristic sites in the background. And I like it for two reasons. One, the final image, of course, but two, as soon as she had come out the door, I'd already noticed her washing hanging up, but she wasn't there. And I'd kind of thought about, well, if there was someone coming out there, it might make for a nice bit of storytelling of the image. And so when she came out, I was kind of already ready, set up. So got a little bit lucky, but of course it's all about being ready. And I'd already sort of thought about the story of the image. So that was probably one of my favourites from the evening, and in fact our time in San Sebastian. After the sun set, I spent a little bit of time just wandering the rather empty streets, actually. I think it's been the quietest that we've seen San Sebastian, albeit it was late January, early February. But yeah, just spent a little bit of time wandering around the streets with the X100T, making a couple of images before it was back to the van and getting ourselves ready to move on. And after San Sebastian, we just have been meandering along the Spanish coastline into little villages such as Onati, which looks like a great place to discover some mountain peaks. Now, the park up itself, a bit of a nondescript, just your typical sort of town air. But in the morning, the mountain light, as it sort of peeked over, was really, really beautiful. So I actually ended up just out with the GFX handheld and the 35 to 70 lens, and just sort of capturing the essence of that early morning light. Really, really beautiful. And then again, just carrying on along this sort of just a little bit in off the coastline, just enjoying myself, having a bit of fun, chasing down light, chasing down shadows in some of these little villages, which have got like 3 or 4 people wandering around them. But it's all good practice. Again, I think I'll talk about this in an upcoming vlog. Not necessarily my first choice for subject matter, but it's all about practice. It's all about, you know, showing up. It's all about being committed. It's all about just having that practice time with the X100T, with the iPhone, sometimes even with the GFX. So up until this point, all of the images have just been handheld and just being reactive to the light and to the shadows. And again, I'll put a little selection of those images up now. We finished this little sort of section of our journey in Santander. We were last in Santander 5 years ago. And again, the weather was going to be sort of quite mixed again. So we just wanted to be hunkered down somewhere, do a bit of running, do a little bit of Spanish tapas eating, maybe the odd glass of vino or two. And again, just wandering around with the X100T. Now again, the weathermen got it wrong. I'm going to have to completely ignore what weathermen have to say, because actually, as some of those weather systems moved through, the stormlight down on the coast was absolutely stunning. And I'll stick a couple of those images from Santander up now. And that kind of brings us up, not quite to present, because I've moved on. I think we were in Santander about 5 or 6 days ago, but certainly brings us up to date in so much as how much I'm going to be sharing on this particular vlog. So obviously the idea was to record a little bit of a photography vlog as we journeyed south through France. The weather put a bit of a kibosh on that, and so I decided just to embrace the situation and just take the little moments as I could. I don't think there was any images in the vlog that have been taken with a tripod with any sort of consideration. They've all been sort of more reactive, more just adapting to the situation, chasing down light and chasing down shadows. I was reading an article from another photographer on Substack regarding the state of photography vlogs on YouTube. And it's certainly something that I have felt for quite some time, and it's just something that I wanted to quickly address as I wrap up this particular vlog. I think the photography genre on YouTube is, number one, very saturated. Certainly since post 2020, there are thousands of photography vlogs out there, a number of them absolutely fantastic, of course. But it seems to be that a lot of them are falling into the same kind of script, which is understandable because maybe if it works for a handful of photographers, it's going to work for others. And that's, go into a location, record some B-roll of said location, record some B-roll of you taking camera out of bag and closing a gate and walking through a gate, setting up the shot, talking about the shot, showing the shot, and then repeating that 3 or 4 times. Now, I'm as guilty as the next person from that perspective. But maybe as I start to evolve and start to post more on my photography channel here, maybe I can do things a little bit differently, especially because of the slightly unique situation that I find myself in, full-time travel in the van. So 100%, I think the main focus is still going to be on photography. But perhaps there's going to be a little bit more depth to the locations that I visit. Maybe even throw in a little bit of the local cuisine. I'm always up for eating in front of the camera as well. Showing you a little bit more of the local culture maybe. And again, I'm just sort of throwing this out there as some ideas. I certainly, back, I'm not sure how long ago it was, it might have been even before COVID times, I posted a video that I was already getting quite bored with the same photography channels and the same photography vlogs and my own photography vlogs, that whole go out, record B-roll, talk about an image, show the image and repeat. And so again, because I'm in this unique-ish situation where I'm traveling and making images as well, maybe I'll be able to sort of go a little bit deeper than just the images. The focus will obviously still be on the images, but maybe just throwing in from time to time something additional from the particular area. The other thing that I want to make sure that I do, and something that I've already been doing, is I'm not going to be so kind of hard on myself that the vlogs all have to be kind of polished and with epic B-roll. In fact, there's probably people shouting at the screen now and saying, Nigel, your vlogs are never like that anyway. It's just, as I said at the top of the year, 2026 was going to be a pivotal year for me from my creativity. And that means that I can't just go out with a camera when the conditions are, either the environmental conditions or the location conditions are perfect. It's all about showing up. It's all about being consistent. It's all about going out on the overcast days. It's all about going out on the bright blue sunny days, not just golden hour. And I want to make sure that I capture the essence of that in the vlogs as well. So there's probably going to be vlogs out there that maybe are coming up that maybe only are 2 or 3 minutes long, just sharing maybe one particular area or one particular thought. I'm going to be less precious about the scheduling. I know I said Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, but maybe I'll put 2 out a week, maybe I'll put out 4 in a week. No idea. Maybe they'll be 15 minutes long, maybe they'll be 5 minutes long. This is really just me, another avenue for my creativity and sharing it here on this particular channel. But yeah, so that was the 10 days or so that it took us driving down from the north coast of France down to San Sebastian and then along to Santander. As I say, we're about an hour and a half further west now, and we're just going to continue to slowly meander along the coast, and as always, taking you along for the ride as well. We're actually due some pretty heavy rain in the next hour or so. It's going to last 24 hours. The north coast of Spain, in fact the west coast of Portugal, has had some horrific weather conditions over the last couple of weeks, and I think we're going to get the edge of a pretty gnarly storm over the next 24 hours. So it's a case of battening down the hatches, making sure the coffee cups are full, and just really chilling out. But once again, thanks a lot for following along, and until next time, as always, happy pixels. Take care. Bye bye.